Hey.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Pilet, and this is
Carrie Pilet.
And we're so glad to have you back. I would like to remind you, if you will, that we broadcast on irnbroadcast.com. All of our previous shows are available on that station. Mm-hmm. Also, if you will, if you go to our website at interventionsinc.com, a lot of the handouts and a lot of the different documents that we use or talk about are available online for download, as well as some of the videos that we produce at Interventions. But we're going to start off tonight by doing our Strive to Thrive 300.
And we need the bell.
Carrie likes the bell.
I like the bell.
Part of we'd like you to know is, if you will, that Strive to Thrive 300 is 300 seconds. It's 5 minutes. And during those 5 minutes, we're going to try to give you something that you might apply or use during your life, something that is useful, something that we use in our clinic.
We are.
And just a reminder again, please come by and visit us if you get a chance, or go to our website, drop us an email. But tonight we're going to do the 10 Commandments of Wholeness. 10 Commandments of Wholeness. And if you will, the first of those 10 commandments is be positive.
Be positive.
You know, I like to think of positive as being optimism versus pessimism. And I like the saying I heard one day, which is, you know, optimism may not guarantee success, but pessimism will guarantee failure. You know, being positive is a way to invest in that energy. We have an exercise called the emotional battery exercise,
right,
which has to do with, you know, you've got to fill your mind with those things that are motivating, that are inspirational, those things that make you feel good about yourself, your relationships. Because if you don't, then you contaminate your own environment. You contaminate the pool of life that you swim in. And, you know, it's really easy to get down on yourself. It's not that optimism will guarantee that you win, but certainly pessimism will drag you down. Rule number 2.
Love yourself without being indulgent.
And what do you think we mean by indulgent?
Living to excess is what I think indulgent means. Overdoing it, maybe living beyond your means, not being appreciative of what you have in your life.
We have so many clients that come through our clinic of all socioeconomic statuses, if you will. Some are homeless, some are wealthy. But one thing we found is that when people are too indulgent and they abundantly fill their lives with too many toys,
stuff,
they lose themselves and they lose a grasp for what is real. You know, last week we talked about Angela Adams, the world-renowned, world-famous black and white photographer. And we mentioned that, you know, simplicity and form are the basics by which a photograph can be enjoyed. Relationships are the same way. When we become overindulgent in too many toys, too many trinkets, too many automobiles or toys or TVs, LEDs, you name it, computers, we tend to forget the quality of the relationship truly is based on two humans interacting in a way that we call collaborative.
That's right.
Commandment number 3, be forgiving. You know, the one thing about forgiveness is that it's a way of clearing your mind of all those harbored negative energies. You can't live life filled with memories that are profoundly filled with those violations that people have had against you, filling your life with grudges. You know, when we forgive, we're actually releasing ourselves of all those negative energies.
Yes, we are.
You don't forgive for the benefit of the other person. You forgive for the benefit of yourself.
Right.
Okay? And commandment number 4.
Keep your life balanced. Balanced. When I looked at this one, I was thinking of what we call the 3 C's, which are children, chores, and career. And I'll explain each of those. But those 3 C's take up the majority of our waking time in a given day, in most of our week.
Our little girl was in bed with us last night at 1:30.
Yeah, she came over.
Careers, children, and chores.
Yeah. So children really have to do with the raising of the family, the nurturing, the managing of children to get them launched.
Keeping that balance so that you're not too consumed in your career, that you're not overly consumed in your children or chores. You know, we've seen families, moms and dads, that stayed together even though the relationship was awful because they thought they were doing it for the kids.
Right.
We've seen relationships stay together because one partner was the breadwinner that made all the money, and as a result of that strong financial value from that career, that relationship continued when, in fact, it was out of balance. And then chores, we can become so consumed with the maintenance of life that we forget that life is meant to be experienced, not maintained. The yard is important, but it's not so important that it should take away from those pleasures in life.
Well, we have a friend who actually lost his marriage because he couldn't stop with the house that he built for his wife.
Yep.
He could not get off of the list and just let go of some of the flaws or the
he subcontracted everything
stuff.
To the point of having night lights up at nighttime so he could work on the painting of the exterior of the house.
Which is chores being out of balance.
Number 5 of the 10 Commandments of Wholeness, which is take time to meditate and pray. I like to remind people that prayer is a request to a dimension outside the one you live in to affect the one you live in. It's interesting, and sometimes we have to think about that. But when we meditate and we attempt to put ourselves in that serene place, when we attempt to rid ourselves of all those thoughts of the material world and present ourselves to that quiet serenity, we discharge all that negative energy. That idea that there is a better place, that there is a vision, there is something beyond this that is there, and we just got to freely find it and achieve it through that presence of peace.
Right.
The 6th of the 10 Commandments of Wholeness is
listen closely to whatever message your body has for you.
And
so we were talking about this earlier. I liked your idea, which is eat when you're hungry and sleep when you're tired, because that is your body telling you, what's going on with it in very basic, quiet ways.
In today's topic, as you will find out, we're going to be talking about stress today. That's our topic for today as we work through our hour with you on the radio tonight. But when people are stressed, they can feel the clamminess of their oily skins. They can feel their blood pressure and their heart rate. They can feel the desettledness, the unsettledness of their mind and their body, their mind spinning, their physiology, their metabolism so spooling up. Read those messages. Get in touch with those messages and learn to quiet down. Commandment number 7, if you will, look for humor and joy in every situation. I had recently where someone that is a client of ours used this in practice. They were actually late for a wedding that they were going to attend, and the rain had come down. The car had broke. They had a busted tire, and as they got to the wedding, he's drenching wet. His shirt sleeves are up to his elbows, and he's just putridly filthy dirty because of what he went through. But he's telling the story, how he had to climb out the window because he didn't want to open the door because the water would come in as the cars were passing because there was so much rain. As he tells the story of how they got to the church and ran in, and they're soaking wet and they're grimy and they're dirty and they're using paper towels, people were dying laughing. They thought it was the funniest thing they've ever heard. And we have to try to reconstruct many of those things that have happened in life and turn that positive energy onto getting rid of the black book memory and making it a white book memory that promotes joy and laughter.
Right.
Number 8 of the 10th Commandment.
Breathe deeply.
Breathe deeply. When you fill your chest with a deep breath and you let that air out and you find that relaxation, you rejuvenate the mind, the body, and your presence, and just that relaxing peacefulness of just enjoying that simple.
Well, it is the beginning of that meditation. It is that beginning of that just release, and it's very simple. If you don't have time to meditate and pray, you probably have time to take the deep breath. The ninth,
if you will, dream yourself to health. The idea that you can, in your mind's eye, find that place that is not here but there, that place that's perfect, that place that gives you that total relaxation. That's what's interesting about this notion of meditation and prayer and this idea of dreaming yourself to health. As you rid yourself of all of these outside thoughts and you picture yourself in that pleasant place, your body responds.
Yeah.
Your body responds in positive healing processes that rejuvenate you. And then finally, number 10.
Number 10. Know that healing comes from within.
Isn't that sort of mentioned previously in these other ideas? But the idea that the outside world can never heal the inside. The inside's got to work to the outside. And so as you have that notion of optimism, as you have that idea of serenity and peace and prayer, that dimension outside the one you live in to the one you live in, you start to find those energies inside of you that you never knew you had.
That's right.
And as you feel those energies go to work and you see that prosperity unfold in your life, it's a true rejuvenation as you reconstruct yourself and rid yourself of all those energies, negative energies. Hey, that's our 10 Commandments of Wholeness for tonight.
Which is our Strive to 300.
We thank you for that. We're going to go on to our first question for tonight. And I was, trying to figure out how we can put these different topics together to address the topic is stress and stress management. So I'm going to give you, Carrie's going to give you the
start with the
first question for tonight. Okay?
I've heard you talk about how there's more stress on families today than when our parents raised us. Could you explain why you think that this is true? And the answer is yes, I can explain why I think this is true.
There's a lot more stress.
I really do think there's a lot more stress on families now than what I saw growing up on, I think, my parents. And when I talk to people that are a generation older than me, I get the same reflection back. I think that it was much easier for me than it is for my kids.
But I want to remind the audience, if you will, that stress in its most simplistic form is change. Anytime that you're being forced to change. So a new job, relocating, moving your apartment, going to college for the first time, or even a new semester. All these changes or stressors. And we do have this idea of positive versus negative stress. Positive stress being anything that's motivation, that's inspiration. Negative stress, anything that's dread, that's burdensome, that's typically something undesirable, that's negative stress. And so what Carrie's saying is that, we're just filled with so many challenges on day-to-day life.
Well, we've had so many changes as a society and what our expectations are and how we choose to live. We now commute more. It was really unheard of 20 and 30 years ago to commute more than, maybe 5 or 6 miles. People stayed in their hometowns. They didn't move.
I saw a study recently where they were trying to analyze the cost of the price of gas to the average person in the United States, and it was contrast that roughly 20 years ago the average person only commuted about 6 miles. Well, now it's 26 miles, and so when the price of gas is now approaching $4 a gallon.
26 years ago, gas was 51 cents a gallon.
Yeah, and so look at the impact that has on us, right? 51 cents a gallon.
Today it was it's $3.80 for premium today.
And the other thing is that dual income families are now the norm and no longer the oddity. Moms and dads are faced with trying to face the finances of an apartment and utilities and gas and insurance and schools, and both have to work. And we have a culture where the woman has assumed the additional responsibilities of working. Right. You're not just the mom and a homemaker. We had several weeks ago, and I would request, if you will, go to our website and check out the value of a wife. Carrie did a wonderful job on that a few weeks ago, to give us, what does a wife cost if she was to stay home, and what would it cost for the man to make up for that in strictly occupational income to compensate for that? And it's striking, okay?
It is.
Some of the other things that have to do with stress are...
Well, some of the signs of stress in society is that we have 15 million people that are abusing alcohol, that overuse.
So last study I said, about 15 million people are alcohol dependent. 1 in 4 people in the United States have high blood pressure.
I always find that interesting when I go around my group, because if I have a group of 10 or 12, I actually will count off, because it's not real to people until you start bringing it into where you are. And so I'll go, okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, you have high blood pressure. And I will invariably have somebody in the room that says, well, I have that, like, oh, pick me. But, in 12 people, you'll have 3 that have high blood pressure, whether they know it or not. And that's the societal norm.
I've done the same question with my men. Of course, I don't ask people to self-disclose to me of the alcohol dependent, but I'll say, how many of you were raised in a family that had a father or a mother or a stepfather or a stepmother who was alcohol dependent? And usually 60 or 70% of the hands go up. So there's that stress again that's affecting people.
Right.
Some of the other ones, if you will, I saw one study that said 50% of all medical bills are stress-related.
Yep. I would agree with that as they come into my office.
That smoke more. People that drink more. People that have nervous blood pressure type issues usually see that to extreme.
Yeah.
There's so
and we're
many
living
things.
that old saying, take 2 aspirin and call the doctor in the morning. Because the number one over-the-counter seller are for pain. Things like Tylenol and Advil and Aleve, things for headaches.
Yep.
Headaches, pain, whatever ails you, take 2 and call your doctor in the morning.
So as we look at this answer for this question, yes, stress is an all-time high. People are affected by it in ways never before seen. We have stepmoms and stepchildren and blended families. 70% is our now current divorce rate. Florida.
For first marriages.
First marriage, 70%. So we have more broken marriages than marriages that are working. People don't know where to go when they want to be happy, healthy, and loving because our society is just so filled with the opposites.
Right.
People are stressed out. I hope that answers your question, okay?
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back.
Thank you. I've got the next question, so I'm going to get right into it. And if you will, here we go. Ready? Mm-hmm. I have always prided myself at working well under pressure. The more I have to do, the greater the emergency, the clearer I think, the more I produce. I've never felt overwhelmed, frazzled, or uncertain. But my wife tells me I make her crazy. She's miserable because my high energy makes her nuts. Mm-hmm. Why is it that my stress energizes me, but she interprets it as counterproductive, if not destructive? Well, let me tell you, first of all, and it might help, if you will, to look at how we define, and we have sort of this formula that has to do with stress, and that is demand plus interpretation equals stress. So it's not the demand on you that is all there is to whether you have stress or not. It's
right.
How do you interpret that? You follow that?
Yeah, well, I think that's the bigger part, actually.
So how do you think he interprets stress?
He's motivated by the demands being made on him.
Yeah. And so it energizes him. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had lots of clients. In fact, I've got a lady that works in my office, and she'll tell you that she does better when she's under the gun, under pressure. Mm-hmm. And it's not uncommon. I have that said quite often. In fact, when I was teaching one of the universities, I had students that would religiously not do anything until the last minute. Because that's what it took to get those juices flowing, okay?
Well, some people feel validated. Maybe they feel like they've accomplished something when they can do it. It's that instant gratification thing.
But what I see is not that. What I see is typically when people spool up, they get that adrenaline going, and they get that whole neurotransmitter, indulgent, dopamine, norepinephrine, the rush. And that's what they like, okay? Yeah. But it could be that the demands that are on you for your career and that idea that you're accomplishing that career because you're achieving are not the same as your wife, because your wife might interpret as your career displacing in a destructive way your role as a father and your role as a husband.
Right.
And so as you spool up with that energy for your career, I'd like to remind the listener that I often like to say this, and it's something that makes us thinking, if you will. A career is what you do when it's your profession. A job is what you do for an income. Okay?
Right. A career is your passion.
Your passion. Mm-hmm. And it could very well be that his passion, his career, is draining him so much that she sees the deficit in the family.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair.
So
he doesn't tell us a lot about her other than that his energy drives her crazy.
So she might not accept your interpretation of this adrenaline rush that you're getting. Mm-hmm. That is the interpretation that as you accomplish your career and you move forward into this vision that you have, that it's not a collaborative vision. It's not a vision of you and me as husband and wife, as father and mother. Mm-hmm. And so this energy that you spend getting there damages us. So again, let me remind you, if you will, demand plus interpretation is equal to stress. Mm-hmm. And that not all stress is bad. Some stress is good. Positive motivational energy can be good. And if you will, I'll contrast getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning may be negative when you hate your job. Right. But then it's Saturday morning and you're going to get up at 5 o'clock to go fishing.
Because your passion is fishing and not your job. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you want to check out your stress, one of the tools that we have is that social adjustment scale.
And it's on our website. Please, I would invite you to download it and engage it. It gives you roughly 100 different items that you choose. Mm-hmm. And any one of these that are going on in your life, you tabulate it. And if your score is over 300, then you would have what we call a high stress level lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But what's important is to recognize that when people have lots of stress in life, lots of negative stress, typically they stop doing the positive stress. And I like to remind folks that the positive stress in our life is kind of like the antimatter to matter. Right. That is, positive stress tends to negate negative stress. Mm-hmm. And if you will, I love this saying, and I say it frequently, and it's, I can live in hell for a month if I know why, but I won't make it a day unless I've got this reason. Mm-hmm. You follow that?
Yeah.
So I've worked with lots of guys that truly look forward to their weekends. Right. That they can do those things that are positive, that are motivating, and they get through that horrific job that they hate, or this awful stuff that they've got that just they don't want to do.
Because they have that light at the end of the tunnel, which is their weekend, and hopefully their family.
Yes. And you know, talking about functional, dynamic, loving families, and for some couples, it's being together as a family with the kids on weekends is the driving force, that positive motivational energy that removes that negative energy, which is, you know, in today's times, a lot of folks are doing jobs that they don't want, mainly because it pays the bills and there are not a lot of choices.
Right. And so a lot of your stress has to do with your interpretation of all that's going on.
Back to this question, please remind yourself that, I want to remind you that that your interpretation of your career and that idea of it being worthwhile may not be the same interpretation your wife has, that you're just draining yourself to the point of not being available for us as a father and as a husband. And so it may be good for you, but it's not good for us. Okay? We're going to go on to question number 3. Carrie's got that one, if you will.
Yep. I have a lot going on. I'm working 40 hours a week, going to school 12 hours a week. I have 2 children, ages 3 and 5. My husband works 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off on an oil platform. I do better when he's gone. Last week, while home, I lost it. He wants to take charge of the home to give me a break, and nothing goes right. I became a raging lunatic when I found last month's bills under the seat in the car. He forgot to mail them.
Oh, my.
It took 2 days to calm down. What can I do to prevent myself from losing it? Well, when we look at how this relates to stress, she went from stress because she has a lot going on to crisis, which is when I have more demands, more going on than I believe I can handle.
So what you're saying
I'm out of resources.
So what you're saying, when a person's overwhelmed, they go into crisis, and being in crisis is not the same as being stressed.
No.
Okay.
Crisis, people go postal.
Okay. We all know that term, right? You might have heard that in the newspaper, going postal.
Yeah.
Wigged out is one I heard.
Wigged out.
Yeah. They lost it.
Sure. Yeah. People will refer to that. They go over the edge. And
so when she found the bills under the...
It was like the last straw.
So
the
that's
straw,
it. She
the
went
last
postal.
straw in the camel.
So
And I talk to my people about straws and camels because I'm like, usually it's not the straw. It's the 2,000 other straws already on the camel.
Okay. You're talking about the straw that broke the camel's back.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
I got you. So you're saying that the straw that broke the camel's back is not the problem. It's all the accumulated straws.
Right.
The last straw, the one that broke its back, well, that may be the one we think about, but that's not the cause. So she's been accumulating negative energy for a long time. But finding those bills under the seat of the car
was it.
That's it. She went postal.
Was it, right.
Okay. So
and as you mentioned, stress accumulates. It accumulates over time. And so she has a lot going on. He is home and not home. And her question is, what can she do to prevent herself from losing it again?
Well, I like that idea that she's accumulating a lot of negative energy when her husband's gone, when her husband's here. But it seems to me...
It sounds like it's more negative when he's here, though.
Yeah.
And, we see this not only with her. I mean, I can see this because he's in and out. And this is life. She doesn't get to go in and out. She's here all the time, 24/7, 365. She's here with the kids in school and work and the whole thing.
So when he jumps in
gets
to
away and then he comes back and I really think he wants to help. I really think in the goodness of his heart he really is trying to give her a break, but he hasn't asked her, how can I help you, sweetie?
He's not helping in ways
saying,
that
I'll pay the
she
bills.
thinks are important.
I'll cancel the sitter, and she's got to be sitting over there going, no, please just don't touch, don't change anything, don't. So, but I don't think she's telling him that.
I've got a couple of suggestions. One is, of course, that you make a list of ways to your husband that when he's in town, this is how you can help me.
Yeah.
And one thought, if you will, is when you're in town, you bring the kids to school and you pick them up.
Sure.
And let my routines alone that have to do with the structure of the family, like paying the bills, maybe.
Well, it's in working to be collaborative. I really think she's going to have to be the one to take lead here because she's the one that's living at home with the kids all the time. And I think he could easily get his feelings hurt because I think he really does want to help.
Sure.
And so she, like you were saying, I think she's got to lay down, here are the needs that I have. Here's what I'm going to ask from you for being involved when you're available to be involved.
One last thought I have on this is just remember that stress is additive. It's just like if you had a backpack and you put a 10-pound plate and a 12-pound plate and a 5-pound plate. Everything in your life is back in your backpack. It's adding. So please understand when you went postal with your husband, you had a lot of pressure. A lot of it might have nothing to do with him.
Right.
It's just you were set off by that one thing. That put you in crisis. Right. You're probably running at a pretty high stress level as it is. But that, as Carrie said before, that thing that broke the camel's back, that thing that broke the camel's back, that's the thing you're focused on. But actually, it appears to me from you working full-time, going to school, etc.
Which I think she's excited about. And maybe I'm thinking about this sitting here, is that as stress is additive, good stress is additive too. So it's still the 10 pounds of good stress and the 12 pounds of bad stress.
They're not additive. We talked about that. One is the matter, one is the antimatter. Positive stress tends to negate the negative stress. That's what
it tends to. Yeah,
it's not a load on your back as much as it relieves a load on your back. But I'd like to go on to the next question, if we will, and
okay.
I think it's my turn for that one.
It is.
And it says here, when I get under a lot of pressure, I become increasingly agitated by even little things. I've learned to calm myself down by meditation, by exercise, by even taking caffeine out of my life. But I have this nasty habit of being critical of others when I feel attacked. And if you will, I lash out without thinking, often regretting what I said. I mean, I'm doing better, but I really do overreact more than I should. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Sure.
One thing, if you will, when we talk about anger and anger management, first of all, there is a relationship. When people are filled with a lot of stress, yes, they do get angry. And it's important for you to recognize that anger is about triggers, the things that trigger you. So the fact that you brought a lot of your stress down in your world is important, but also you could be having what are called automatic thoughts. The first time someone says something that's insulting, you process it, you think about it, and now you yell. Well, the next time you don't process as much, you just yell. And then the next time, as soon as you hear something insulting, you're yelling. Well, granted, you've taken a lot of stress out of your life.
And the next time, all they got to do is look at you, right?
And then you're yelling. so now, we're screaming and you're not even saying anything.
You looked like you were going to.
So we got to slow this process down, okay? We like to see our clients use reflective techniques, which is when I feel like I'm being attacked, I ask simple questions like, why are you saying this? Or why are you being this ugly? Or why are you attacking? Slow the process down, because remember, reactivity is when I'm lashing out at the person without any thought.
Yes.
So the more reactive you are, okay, the more instantaneous those responses are.
Right.
But as you lengthen the time and you give yourself a 10 count or even a 30-second count, you increase your odds for success by removing that reactivity, okay? Right. We have to realize, too, that sometimes when people around us tend to aggravate us, that they're just being misperceived. They're really not trying to aggravate you. Maybe they're so focused on problem solving that they are ahead of the game. And you may view this as a violation of your boundaries, but possibly they think they're doing you a favor. Possibly they think that they're actually trying to look out for your benefit. So I would also suggest to you, try to look at people in a loving way. That is, their efforts are not to destroy you, but to build you. And they're taking that assertive action to get a solution,
right,
and get ahead of the game rather than to run over you. Okay?
And I'm going to make 2 points and take us back to that wholeness we were talking about at the beginning. When you have a lot going on and you're stressed, you really do have to be aware of your body's messages.
Amen.
And so, if you're aware that you're more wound up, you can feel it. You can feel that energy. That's a good way to learn to control yourself and be aware. Oh, today I'm going to have to take those deep breaths and be sure that I'm watchful and more tolerant and take my time when I respond to people because I'm stressed.
Well spoken. Hey, I'm going to move us on to our point to ponder, okay? And here we go, points to ponder at, if you will, it's something like this. Sometimes the only difference between bad luck and fortune is perception.
That's true.
Perception. Let me give you a Let me give you an example of this. I had a friend recently that had this wonderful Porsche. It was a black Porsche, and it burned. And he was pretty disgusted about that.
Was he in it?
Yes, he was. You know the story, right? Because as people were racing towards him and their arms were flailing,
he's thinking they're all waving at him, and they're trying to tell him to get out of the vehicle because there's flames shooting out the back.
Flames were coming under the car. The fuel line had burst, and flames were going everywhere. This person had burned their fingers trying to lift the hood to get the hood up to put out the fire. And as it would be, people were there with fire extinguishers, and the fire was put out. Mm-hmm. And for maybe a day or two, he was pretty discouraged about that. But
yeah,
it didn't take long.
He was, because that was his baby.
It was his baby. It didn't take long before this friend of ours actually had a grin from ear to ear. Why? Because the insurance had paid him $6,000 more than what he owed, and even had paid for the car.
Yeah,
the perception,
it's worth more than he owed on it.
Yeah. I'll give you another example, if you will. I had a client not too long ago that was going through a pretty awful divorce. And as he would ruminate all about the relationship and how it hurt and how he missed her and all this kind of stuff, I asked him a few questions. I said, well, first of all, have you done everything you can do to try to let your partner know you wanted it to work out? And he said, yes.
And I said, what did that look like,
willing? Right? Is she willing to work? No. So regardless of all your efforts, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And it's done. She is not going to come back to you, and you've got to move on. And he said, well, yeah, that's right. And he says, I'm really feeling pretty bad about this. I said, well, think about this. Would you rather have been married for 20 more years and then get to this point, or should you reach inside to that prayer and meditative place and say, thank you, Lord, that if it's got to end, let it end while I'm young enough to start again, that I have another opportunity, another chance to have a new relationship with a new partner. And that reconceptualizing about, if it's just not meant to be and there's nothing I can do to make it work, then I ask you to help me get me back. Mm-hmm. Because often when people are going through divorces like this, they lose themselves. Right. And so when I ask them, have you thought about, you spend so much time thinking about the other person, you've lost you, that you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what you like anymore. Mm-hmm. You've overly indulged yourself in this idea that you can fix this thing and it can't be fixed. Get yourself back. And so now I ask you to pray, Lord, what is it? What do I have to do to get me back, to get to have the day and the week where I am truly looking forward to those things that make me happy? And so I'm asking you, if you will, that sometimes those dark times in life are also times that you get to begin again. You get to start over. Mm-hmm. You get to find that strength and that place and that power from within yourself and to find that new beginning. And so my point to ponder, sometimes the only difference between bad luck and fortune is perception. Find that perception. Find that way of filtering through the bad to see it as an opportunity to change and to move on
grow
in a new and prosperous direction. Hey, we're going to get right into our question as we're coming up here at the top of the hour here. So let me go, if you will. While going through a tough divorce, I got into the habit of stopping at a local pub for a beer or two. 2 years later, my new bride asked me to stop drinking.
As she should.
I had gained 30 pounds. My blood pressure was high, and I said, okay. Well, I missed the gang at the pub, so I'd stop by once in a while just to say hi, but not drink. Now she wants me to stop that too. So what do you think? Let me go into this because the only way I can answer this question is to give you a little bit of our philosophy, which we try to teach in our stress management class. And it's to try to differentiate the idea that there is coping and there's dapping. And coping is what we call white knuckling it, okay? In fact, I love this story because we often tell the story about the person that's got a drinking problem and they're going to quit drinking, but they're still going to go to the pub and sit down with their friends and say hi, but they just won't drink.
Well, and they think this is okay.
Yeah.
This is all right. Yeah.
After a few weeks, a couple of months, eventually the guys are going to say, come on, Bobby, you're not drinking. Have a drink. You've been doing good. So the idea that you haven't made a lifestyle change. You're still associating in that environment. You're still around those people. Mm-hmm. So adapting is when you make a permanent change to your life in such a way that you include something new and exclude something old.
Right.
Adapting. If you will, when we talk about weight reduction programs, we ask for people to begin going to the gym, start exercising, play tennis, golf, whatever. We add something, and then we also stop something, which is, of course, maybe that I tend to isolate. I tend to eat while I watch TV. So coping is something that we hold on and we make a minor change, but we really don't make a large change when we talk about a habit or a pattern. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now when we adapt, we make a a change to our life, which is a lifestyle change, okay? So your wife is correct. Yes, you gained 30 pounds. You have high blood pressure. If you're going to stop drinking, you're going to have to stop going to the place where people drink. And that's okay. It's good information. And I would encourage you to follow her advice and get on with it.
My next question falls in nicely with this one. The person's asking, could you explain the difference between coping and adapting and which one is good? And Dr. Pilet was talking a little bit about the difference. And, of course, he mentioned that coping is about a resistance to change. I don't want to change, or I want to change in such a small way that I don't really affect my life. When we cope, we really aren't looking for new information, and we're really very resistant to new ideas. Lots of times we're not really facing the problem. So that young man in our last example probably isn't facing the fact that he has a drinking problem.
Yep.
He says, I can go and don't drink. I can handle it. I'm fine. Which is what you see when people are coping. We tend to get locked into negative patterns. We have a habit or a pattern in place that we enjoy, that we like, that we don't have to think about, but we're not really stepping back to say it's not working. Sometimes we find ways to stay busy, so I don't have to think about it or talk about it or actually address it.
So that's a way that we avoid it. We just keep busy, going, doing.
Yeah. And then lots of times we'll stuff our feelings. We isolate, we withdraw when people discuss it with us. That's all coping. And that is about not changing, which is not the preference. If you're going to have a life that's collaborative and a relationship that's love, you have to adapt. And adapt means that I am open to change, and I'm open to altering myself and my behavior as needed so that I can fit in and blend with our lifestyle. So we do invest in new ideas, and we do take an inventory of ourselves and how I need to fit in and what things about me I need to change to make our life work. But notice you're inventorying
yourself. You're not inventorying other people.
No, you're doing inventory others. It's all about me. Yep. This is what I need to do to contribute and make this work. We're looking for answers. And we understand that, there's going to be some trial and error. Just because it sounds like a good idea doesn't mean that it'll work out like we think.
Meaning trying new things. Okay, so you have to try a few things to overcome the oddity of it, doing them, and then be open that if it doesn't work, there's something else you can do. And then we accept that change is necessary. Sometimes that's easier than other times. We accept that change is necessary when we're sending our children off to college or when we're having a newborn, because we chose that change. But sometimes the day-to-day stuff where change is necessary, I have to stop going to the bar. That one's a little harder to recognize, but we have to get to that place. And then we have to be willing to collaborate, work with our partner, or to compromise, to come up with some kind of a give and take in order to make the relationship a priority. And so Carrie is giving you a contrast about adapting
coping
and
adapting.
And those are important. I don't have a lot of time, but I'd gotten another question, and it was so close to this one, I've just got to give it to you real quick.
Okay.
And it says, I can't stop smoking weed. I used to think I could, and it was all about chilling. But I can tell you, I cannot put up with all the crap in my life. And when I try to stop, I feel like I'm going to explode. My stress is really high. But if I stop smoking my weed, I'm scared I'll lose it and punch someone out. I think what you're saying here is what the person was drinking. The person wants to go to the bar and not drink. This person has said, I always thought I didn't have a habit. I have a problem or a habit. Now I realize I do.
Right.
But now they're saying, I'm scared of what will happen to me if I attempt to remove this alien abusive.
Right.
And Carrie, I'll tell you, I've had lots of guys tell me that they can't smoke and weed. They don't want to stop because it's the only way they can go to sleep. They're going through a divorce.
So they're I call that self-medicating.
They're self-medicating.
I found something that helps relieve it, but that's coping. It's not a permanent thing. It's not fixing the problem. It's getting dependent on something else, and it's illegal. Despite the fact you might think it's okay, it's an illegal drug, and if you are in a job that drug tests, it doesn't matter. Positive is positive, and they can fire you.
Yeah. We still struggle in our clinic with so many people that believe that it's a clean high, and it's not. The idea that there's still lung issues, there's still physiological issues, and it really is perplexing that many people really haven't investigated that.
Yep.
But I wanted to point out to this listener, I gave them some things to work on, and if you will, go to our website and look for the social adjustment scale. I would also suggest to them to to, they need to talk to a therapist. They need to talk to somebody, because you have pickled your body and your mind to such an extent that you are now, if you're not dependent, you're dang close to it.
Well, you don't have to do it
and
alone.
You need help.
You
need
don't
help.
have to do it alone.
You need to get somebody that is a professional in this area that can work you through that. Also, if you will, realize that through professional help, you can solve this issue. And this is a major challenge, because, substance abuse issues and stress management, they're correlated.
Right.
When people's stress levels go through the roof, they look for ways to find that peaceful place. And sometimes that peaceful place is a mind-altering substance. And so now the stress is gone, but they can't get rid of the mind-altering substance because it's a new habit.
Right.
So it started as a recreational tool to get rid of the stress, but now the stress is gone, and now it's no longer a tool, it's an addiction.
Right.
So there's something to be said about what you've got to go through, but you need to get professional help. Let me go through, if you will, some of the stress management tools that we're trying to ask people to look at.
Yeah.
And let me give you some of these as brief as I can. Number one, exercise. There's a book by Covert Bailey called Fit or Fat, and I would strongly recommend to anybody to read it. Exercise, just 12 minutes of exercise. This exercise produces endorphins, and that physiology, the dopamine, the serotonin,
the release of the adrenaline
will make you feel great.
The burning off of that. Yep.
Number two, get adequate rest. So many people have TVs in their bedrooms, and they watch TV before they go to bed, and they never turn the TV off, and they never have a good night's sleep because they're watching TV in their bedroom for an hour or 2 hours. You'd be surprised how quickly tired you get when you turn off the tube and start trying to read. Right. Rest, especially REM sleep, is absolutely critical for you to achieve. Learn to prioritize. I have so many people, they want to get it all done. They don't make lists, and therefore they never take any satisfaction from the things they've accomplished. And they push themselves to the point of exhaustion, and they go to bed fretting and worried because they didn't get it all done. Make a priority list every day of the things you want to get done. Don't be excessive. Don't be obsessive. Just do the things and then call it quits, and go back to what we talked about before, the 3 C's, career, children, and chores.
The next one is to take a time out daily. And people have trouble with this one when I talk about this, because they don't know what that means. They think about timeouts with their kids. But what I'm talking about with a timeout is a mental break. I know for myself, when when it comes to be lunchtime, I don't tend to eat with the people that I work with, because they just want to talk shop. And so you never get that mental break from what you've done. And so you don't go back after your lunch refreshed and ready for the rest of your day.
Absolutely.
So I think that's my example of what I'm talking about with the timeout.
Some people go to lunch and they talk about work, and that's not a timeout, okay? I like you to develop good eating habits. Get rid of the sugar and the carbs in your life. Quit eating French fries and the chocolate shake, and just get that sugars out of your life. Please find ways to talk about your worries. Talk out your worries. Talk to someone that can bounce off of you suggestions and ideas.
Right.
This one's important to me, if you will. Develop a sense of humor. We mentioned a little while ago. That positive energy, that optimism. Find ways to see things as positive, and you'll find yourself enlightened. Sure. And then last, I'll give you 2 more. Develop a personal growth plan. If you have a vision of a place that you want to achieve, then all the work you do and all of the energy that you expend is worthwhile.
Right.
And then last but not least, and for some of us, it's very hard.
That growth plan, here's how I want them to think about it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Where do you want to be in 2 years? And I'll look at my people coming to me and I go, do you still want to be coming and talking to me in 2 years? And every one of them will shake their head no. I don't take it personal. I don't. Okay, so if this is not your plan in 2 years, then, where do you vision yourself? What do you see happening? Do you see yourself in that job? Do you see yourself in that relationship? Do you see yourself in school? Where do you see yourself being? And that's where you start with your growth plan.
And
where
here
do you
we
want
go.
to be?
In our 2-minute warning, because we're about to sum it up for the night. So here we go for our 2-minute warning. 4 steps to enhancing positive stress in your life. Number 1, stay present moment focused.
Yep.
You heard me last week say you can't drive the car forward unless you stop looking in the rearview mirror. Look out of your windshield. Look
Where
forward.
Where are you going?
Focus on the challenges that are ahead of you on a daily basis, and filter through those events. And get rid of your idle time, but let's get these things done. Number 2, find the silver lining.
That's that be positive thing, isn't it?
It's that be positive, but also, we have things in our life that are meant to be inspiring, that are meant to be to give us the emotional energy to seek challenge and to accomplish goals. Understand, losing your job, hey, the next one is going to be best.
That's right.
Okay?
Better.
Mm-hmm. Number 3, stop scorecarding. That's number 1 in our book.
Number 1 thing to stop doing.
Quit bringing up the past of everything that you've done wrong. Quit reminding your partner of it, because every time you bring up that negative energy, the brain can't tell the difference between a memory of a past negative event and it happening right now. And then finally, number 4, ready?
Ready.
Invest in the rest and
invest in the best and forget the rest.
Acknowledge the positive stress in your life. Make a list of all those things that are working. Assertively apply yourself in performing at least one of them in each of those categories each week. Find things that rejuvenate, that restore, maintain that effort with some determination and perseverance, and make that opportunity to know that your life is the expression of your experiences and your desires and your drive. Positive stress is absolutely crucial as you're trying to achieve and make your life work for you. I want to remind you again one more time of that definition of lifestyle, which is:
life is what God gave you,
and style is how you lead it. So building a positive stress level is what we're talking about. As we close for tonight, I want to remind everybody, please go to our website and look at Social Adjustments Dale. We have a handout about stress. Mm-hmm. We also have a points to ponder with questions you might answer.
Right. And that website again is www.interventionsinc.com.
And